Posthumanism is a thought that is increasingly becoming more real as our world catapults deeper and deeper into technology and everything it has to offer. According to the Ethics Explainer, which is the only website that I could find that made posthumanism make sense, posthumanism has two routes of thought: one that views humans to be radically changed by integrating themselves with technology, and the other that uses our fusion with technology to highlight our humanity as opposed to non human beings. A good example of this is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Altered Carbon. The story includes many posthuman themes, including stacks and sleeves. Your consciousness is uploaded into a stack, and your body, or as the show refers to them as sleeves, can be replaced with another so long as your stack is still intact. Immortality is like the norm in this show. It's actually really cool. I highly recommend this show. In a world where robot humans are becoming more and more real, AI is everywhere, robot limbs are becoming a bigger possibility, and our technology is becoming increasingly more involved and direct in our lives, the idea of posthumanism is more familiar to us than I originally thought. Especially as I was heading into Chinatown, phone in hand, as if I was as if it was an extension of my brain. At that point, I was integrating myself with my phone, with technology that would hopefully enhance my understanding of Chinatown. One thing that I noticed as I was entering Chinatown was the fact that most, if not all, signs had adjacent English translations right above or below the original text. So trying to make guesses on the translations required me to avert my eyes away from the English ones in order to make my best guess. I used context clues of the area around me, words I knew that I could understand, aka if it was in any English, stores surrounding the signs, the pictures up front, like on the stores. I tried to use those clues to decipher what they were conveying in their storefronts. For example, a sign that was posted on the outside of a hot pot restaurant had an 11 and 6 surrounded by text I couldn't understand. Ignoring the top text to the best of my ability, I had no clue what the sign said. 11 and 6 could have meant so many different things. Finally, looking at the English translation, the sign mentioned the restaurant would be closed for maintenance. Putting the text through my translator, the message was the exact same. I used the same method for every sign that I saw in Chinatown. If a storefront had pictures of the food in their window, I assumed the sign had something to do with the food that they were selling. I used the English translation above or below as a sort of confirmation, and then I put the text through Google Translate, which gave me a similar translation usually. I think this affected the way I approached translating, as halfway through I kind of sort of gave up on making guesses, as I was just going to translate it anyways, and the English translation was there. So the English translations on the signs kind of contributed to my guessing being lazy as well, as I knew if I was stuck, I could just look at the signs for guidance. Finding a connection to this in District 9 was hard, I won't lie. The film doesn't explicitly have any mention of a different language. In fact, I'm pretty sure the aliens speak English. However, this feeling I had as I walked into Chinatown, this feeling of being lost, not understanding anything, was something the aliens had to experience when they first immigrated to Johannesburg. They had to come to a new planet and a country and quickly adjust to the culture and language that was completely alien to them, literally. The only difference from my situation and theirs was that Chinatown was happy to provide me translations I could rely on if my guesses were wrong. District 9 wasn't, and the aliens were shamed and discriminated against further if they didn't understand. In this case, the technology I was integrating into my understanding of Chinatown was correct and radically changed how I operated within Chinatown, at least according to Ethics Explainer. I was embodying posthumanism, specifically in the way that my phone operated like an extra set of eyes and an additional brain as I went further into Chinatown. Seeing as I lived near Chinatown, I decided to pop into my favorite supermarket, Lucky Supermarket, before heading home. As I was walking through the aisles, I looked at various Japanese and Chinese candies, specifically focusing on their labels to see if I could guess what the labels were saying. For example, this pudding powder was pretty easy to translate, as the images on the box pretty much explained what the product was. However, when I turned the box around, translating on my own became harder. I assumed the text was discussing the product's flavors or was instructions on how to prepare the pudding. Putting the text through the translator, my guess at the preparation instructions were correct, as the text at the back was explaining how to
As I
make the
continued
taro pudding.
translating the text in the supermarket again, I got similar translations for every product I read as well. After my first guess, I was able to guess right each time after, and I found that my guess never really added anything to the translation. Now, I want you to keep in mind, guessing for these translations was much easier compared to the signs, seeing as you would assume food products would have similar bodies of text on their boxes, product name, description, nutrition facts, and then like a catchy slogan that entices every kid to beg their parents to get them as soon as they get to the checkout aisle. I know I have at least. After walking through the entire store, I decided it was about time I head back. I'm sure the employees felt it was strange that I was walking around with my camera out, muttering to myself as I tried to translate and read out text in languages I didn't understand. As a sort of final set off and an apology to the store, I purchased some ansemada for me and my mother, the packaging being in a language I did understand, Tagalog. It was nice, seeing something familiar to me as I was embarking on a translation journey into territory I wasn't largely familiar with. As I paid and walked out, I walked past a Chatter mobile store nestled right on the edge of Chinatown. Their advertisement signs were in either Mandarin or Cantonese. Using the big fat $15 in the middle as a clue, I assumed the poster was talking about a prepaid phone deal where the customer only needed to pay $15 for either a phone plan or the phone itself. Putting the text through Google Translate, the text mentioned a monthly prepaid phone package starting at $15. From this, I was able to gather two things. One, I was only able to make accurate guesses on my own if I knew the context of the message, like with the food packaging or with the Chatter mobile store. If I didn't have that context, and I wasn't given pictures to explain or even give me a single hint, my guesses were either wrong or just completely non existent as I did not make them. Without the help of my technology to translate, I felt helpless when trying to guess on my own. I felt stupid as well. After all, I should have been able to at least interpret the context clues better. The machine didn't make any mistakes, so, like, why am I? However, I realized something after shaming myself. These mistakes in my understanding of something that was foreign to me are what made me human. They separated me from what the machine was translating. My guesses on the translation of the text weren't as cold or clinical as Google Translates was. They had a little bit more depth, especially when it came to the food packaging. The make your own hamburger kit had a text that I guessed to be something along the lines of, let's get cooking. And Google Translate gave me something really basic, like, let's cook and eat. My translations weren't exact, but they sounded more like something a human would say. Going back to that ethics explainer definition, I was embodying the other definition slash interpretation of posthumanism, the one where I use technology to highlight my own humanity. My dependency on the translator app in some way made me human. Humans innately want to reach out to one another, and language is one way of doing so. It's how culture and passions are shared between groups of people that may have differing ideals and cultures. But if you don't understand the language, how are you able to connect with another person? Sure, I felt terrible having my phone up to my face trying to read the translations, but at least I was trying to read the translations. I was trying to understand a culture that I didn't grow up in, that I wasn't familiar with. I was trying to connect with a group of my fellow man that I didn't quite understand, but again, I wanted to understand. Unlike the humans in Johannesburg towards the aliens in District 9, I was trying to understand a culture that I wasn't familiar with. The humans in District 9 weren't trying to understand the prawns, or sorry, aliens, at all. Sorry, passionate. I was trying. I was trying, and that was what made me human and separated me from the translation technology and any form of technology in general. I felt good after that. I felt good knowing I was human, that despite how much technology I attach and adorn myself with, I was still a person with a soul that just wanted to understand every aspect of the world around me, even if it was foreign. I went home right after, eating my ensamada with pride.